Facebook Live in Dallas, Fort Worth. Studio 1, 11:60 a.m. KBDT. Good morning, good morning. How is everybody across the world? I hope you all are tuning in. Check out my show this morning. We'll be starting in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes of news on the top of the hour in about 50 seconds. Here we go. Hello, Mr. Allen. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to the show. Andy Powers, good morning, my friend. Welcome to the show. Very interesting topic this morning. Welcome, welcome. I'm trying to type and talk at the same time, man. It's kind of difficult when you're trying to concentrate, but I'm going to do my best. All righty. Hey, Mr. Knight, good morning. Good morning. We have about 4.5 minutes to go. It's going to be a great show this morning. We'll be talking about PTSD. We'll be talking about what's happening at the Texas-Mexico border with those kiddos out there, family separation, stress, anxiety, sickness, health, concrete floors, sleeping, all kinds of goodies this morning, man, or baddies, I should say. Going to have Dr. Jedege will be on this morning with me, a neuropsychologist will be on with me. Also, Miss Oregon will be here this morning with me. Frank, good morning, my friend. How are you? The Italian Stallion, all the way from Milan, Italy. Hey, buddy, how are you? Good to see you on the Facebook there, my friend. Well, not live, but at least chiming in and looking at me, my ugly face this morning. So yes, lots of good things. Also, suicide prevention. I'm continuing my program for the last 3 weeks. I'm going to continue today also about suicide prevention, ACT, what we could do, action, what we could do to cure or commit, and also the treatment, what we could do for the possibility of suicide prevention. 40 million people in America are contemplating suicide. What can we do to prevent that, through society, through means? Americans are very charitable. We donate to so many causes in America and also around the world. There was a show last night on CNN that Dr. Sanjay Gupta, a renowned neurosurgeon, talking about food in America. 40 million people in America goes to bed without food. 40 million, guys. That's a lot. That's a lot of folks, in America, land of opportunity, best country in the world, so something has to be done. I'm only one individual, but with a group of individuals who can make a difference in America and around the world, we need to get together, man. My famous quote or saying is, one heart, red blood, one race, one world. Humanity, let's save humanity, separation of kids and parents, life is life, one go around, no returning. As we continue this beautiful journey of life, it's awesome. It's awesome. Life is great. You make what you want out of it, but it's only one time, man. I'm also a preacher man, by the way. I can continue talking for the rest of my life, but man, there's so many things going on in this world, so many things, look what's happening. I don't want to get into the political arena, which I can. I also can get really deep into politics. North Korea and America, look what's happening, many years, confrontation, threats, and look what's happening now, my friends. It's amazing, isn't it? Just by talking, flexing muscles. Who's stronger? Who's weak? So again, my thing is medical, human body, human life. Humans, life is life, one heart, red blood. It's awesome to do the things each and every one of us would like to do. We have our own desire in life to make things happen for us. Do the best you can. You know, my motto is strive for perfection to achieve excellence. Only God is perfect. But we can do as much as we can. You know, we can give back. We can give back to society. We can give back to the poor, the needy, if you have it. You know, it doesn't take $1 billion or $1 million to live a good life. You can give back. You can have all the material things in life, but once you go, the final days of your life, guess what, my friend? You ain't taking anything with you, man. It's just you and that little box of yours going. Dust to dust. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, my friend. Okay, so think about it. You know, as you continue this journey of life, you know, we're born. Somebody will live for 1 hour, and someone can live for a minute or 120 years.
The radio hosts of Dr. Mirror, Healthcare Starts With You, are not licensed physicians. They are not operating a medical practice. The ideas and information presented here are for the consideration of you and your caregivers. The show's content is not meant to go against or contradict the prescriptions, therapies, and other guidance of your caregivers. Never discontinue or alter prescriptions, therapies, or other physician directives, except upon the instructions and close supervision of a responsible doctor.
And now, Dr. Mirror, your health starts with you. He has over 40 years' experience as Director of Respiratory Care, Pulmonary Rehabilitation, and Radiology. His medical experience spans neonatal and pediatric ICU to pain management and hospice. And he is your host. Say hello to Pete Persad.
Good morning, my friends around the world. Welcome to Dr. Mirror. Healthcare begins with you. My hidden agenda at home. This program is dedicated to all human beings around the world, in which I will discuss through my panel of about 20 to 25 physicians in Dallas, Texas, with healthcare issues. I am a respiratory care practitioner for 40 years in New York, Washington, D.C., and also Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. My program, as I said, is dedicated to individuals who has no health insurance in America, where people will get sick, will have some form of disease. And as a respiratory care practitioner, lung disease, heart disease, kidney disease, and to help patients who are going home or upon discharge to go home with instructions from their physician and nurses how to take care of themselves at home and to prevent them from going back to the emergency room, to follow certain instructions from their healthcare professionals to do certain things at home. And I'll give you an example. Let's say CVA, a cerebral vascular accident, a stroke. Because from a stroke, you have to retrain the certain part of the brain to do things that the brain cannot function through rehabilitation. It's a long, drawn-out process. And again, through the healthcare system in America, which is broken, in my opinion, only a certain amount of time is given to patients with a stroke to rehab. The rest of the time, the family members, loved ones, will have to help that patient continue their treatment at home. So my program, through the interpretation from physicians on my panel, this is not advice or to follow the treatment plan for my advice, but also to follow the instructions for your primary care physician at their office as they direct you how to take care of yourself. So again, there's certain things you can do at home, you know, with CVA, cardiac problems, congestive heart failure, very basic things. Check your blood pressure, check for swelling in your legs, simple things, check your heart rate, check your temperature for infection control, check your temperature for flu viruses. So again, Very basic things at home. Even when you're cooking, be careful on a hot stove or a flame. Prevent burning. Prevent smoke inhalation when you're barbecuing. So again, my friends, just basic things. As you're doing certain things, certain basic things at home to prevent yourself from going to your room. Yeah, even though in America the laws are an emergency room cannot turn you away to be seen because you do not have health insurance. It's a beautiful thing, but at the same time, somehow you have to pay that insurance bill once it comes to your home. And that's why it's a vicious cycle. You have to pay that insurance either through remortgaging whatever, your car, your home, and also at the same time sacrifice some food. I don't know. I'm just assuming that. But again, it's a vicious cycle. So from my perspective and from the perspective of people I have spoken to, from politicians to medical personnel to layman's individuals, it's important to take care of your health. Very, very important. A simple thing as breathing, asthmatics, patients with bronchitis, patients with any type of respiratory disease, because you have to breathe to sustain life. So you have to take care of your breathing issues. Smoking can cause lots of lung issues, which most of the population out there is aware of. But still, folks do smoke. So again, it's up to the individual to make this type of decision for their health. What do they want to accomplish with their health? How long do they want to live? Even though the body, the genetics, the DNA in each of us is different, you might have someone who will smoke their entire life without developing cancer, and you have someone who will not smoke for their entire life or whatever and develop cancer. So it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. It's rolling the dice. Depends on your body, whatever, immune system. I'm not a scientist, but based on what I've seen from my experience dealing with patients in the hospital, again, their history for their lung disease. So again, guys, it's very, very important to understand your body. Understand your body, to relate to your body, relate to any issue in your body to make sure you're doing the proper and the right thing based on your physician's direction in terms of where they're going. Now, I will be talking about suicide prevention today. We continue the program from a couple of weeks ago about suicide prevention. We lost a few celebrities a while back due to suicide prevention with no signs and or indications of what these individuals had in their thoughts, in their mind. One individual left a note, one did not. These individuals were prominent in their career, well established, and the question is why? Why do people commit suicide? I think there's a hidden agenda in there, okay? And on the phone, I have Dr. Jedege on the phone. Good morning, Dr. Jedege. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. It's Sunday morning in Dallas, Fort Worth.
That's right.
Dr. Jedege. Dr. Jedege, as I know, is a renowned neuropsychologist. Am I correct?
That's right.
Yeah, would you mind telling me a little brief history about your studies and where you were doing your clinical, not your clinical, but where you're seeing your patients at this time? We'll be talking a little bit about suicide prevention, about PTSD, about anxiety, and some of the reasons you think, based on your patient communication, some of the reasons and what we can do to prevent people who are contemplating suicide.
Mm-hmm. So I went to school. I had my master's at Delphi University in New York, and I did my PhD in California School of Professional Psychology, and did internship and postdoc in New York, specializing in neuropsychology. So at this point, I am seeing patients in rehab facilities. I go to a number here locally in the DFW area, and I see people who have had traumatic brain injury, stroke. Sometimes even they go in for having knee replacement or things after they've had a fall. So I see a number of patients with different reasons for being in the hospital. But suicide is a very tragic reaction that people have to a stressful life situation. Just to give you a little bit of rates of occurrence, according to the CDC, about 44, actually close to 45,000 recorded suicide were documented in 2016. So this is something that is common. Men die of it about 4 times more than women. Women attempted about 2 times more than often than men. Just to think of it a little more, about 13 to 14 people per 100,000 individuals. This occurs in the U.S. So it's a big leading cause of death, and we should pay attention to it. And a lot of the times, the symptoms or warning signs that we see include someone talking about suicide. For example, they may say, "Oh, I feel like dying. I want to kill myself," or "I wish I wasn't around," or "You would be better off without me." Saying statements like that. It's even more urgent / important to note when they have access to things, or they tell you. A lot of the time, some people say how they are going to do it, whether it be by a gun or taking pills and things like that. Other symptoms or warning signs to watch for is if someone withdraws from social contact. So they have a social withdrawal. They don't do things they normally do. If they're usually someone that socializes, you notice that they're not quite doing that, or they seem more wanting to be alone. Having mood swings, some days they may be really depressed and they isolate. Some days they're high and just feel a little bit better. But when they have a constant preoccupation with dying and death, feeling hopeless about situations they're in, or if you notice they're drinking more or doing drugs or having a change in their routine, those are big warning signs that we see, and family and friends should really take a note of. Now, the causes of someone having these kinds of thoughts or feelings vary. A lot of my patients, it's because, they're usually someone who was active, doing a lot of things, and then they have a traumatizing event, whether it be a motor vehicle accident or stroke or something that really changes their quality of life, and they feel hopeless. They really can't do a lot of things they used to do. But even in the general population, when you just feel such sadness where you see no hope, that's some of the causes of people doing something like this. And also, we should pay attention to some of the risk factors of this. If someone has attempted before, that's a big thing to watch for. If they have a history of substance abuse problems or an underlying psychiatric issue like major depression, PTSD, or even bipolar disorder, a number of psychiatric issues is a risk factor for suicide. And again, medical conditions people have chronic pain or terminal illness, chronic diseases. These are risk factors that we need to pay attention to. And a lot of the times we ask, once you notice the symptoms, you notice that there's a risk factor for it, it's important to get them engaged in treatment.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have a station break coming up in about 50 seconds. What I'd like to touch on the next segment is about the brain itself from a neuro psychology standpoint. About what goes on in the brain from your experience. I know we cannot dive into the brain and open the brain up and see what's happening, but based on talking to your patients, what do you think exactly goes on from a medical standpoint with the electrons and the neurons and those type of things in terms of a DNA perspective? So we'd like to touch base on that. And again, thank you for calling, Dr. Jedege. It's a pleasure to have you talk so much about this suicide prevention. We will be right back in about 4 minutes. Thank you much. We'll be right back. Can I talk to her on the phone? Hello, Dr. G, there? No? Okay, cool. That's fine. Hello, Facebook guys. Thank you all very much. That's Dr. Jedege. She's going to be hanging on for 4 minutes until our commercial ends. We'll continue the program. We're going to touch base in terms of the brain. What goes in our mind, trying to touch on that a little bit. What caused us to think about suicide prevention? Think about suicide as we continue to contemplate it. As I said, there's a bunch of people, as Dr. J said, 45,000 people in 2016 in the United States alone commit suicide. I'm a veteran, and about 22 veterans a day commit suicide in America. Now, that's a lot of folks, So the Veterans Administration is looking into that, and there's a hotline that you can call for a veteran crisis line. The number is 1-800-273-8255. That number again is 1-800-273-8255. And you press 1 for a direct connection to the Veteran Crisis Line. Also for the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's not a hotline, it's a lifeline, okay, to prevent someone from committing suicide. And that number also is 1-800-273-TALK. 1-800-273-TALK. 1-800-273-8255. Again, if you're contemplating or have thoughts of suicide, give someone a call. Give these guys a call. They'll talk to you. Get into your mind as to why you're thinking about it. And some of the things that you're going to want to know is, for family members who are thinking about, hey, my loved one is acting differently, act upon it, as Dr. J mentioned. Act upon it, so do something about it. Acknowledge it, take it seriously, and listen to that individual. Don't pass it off as a joke. Oh, they're just kidding or whatever. And then care about that individual. Notice the warning signs. Note what that person is saying. Okay? Take the initiative to do something. Get him to counseling or something like that. And also the treatment.
And events. Find out more about Grapevine by going to www.grapevine.com.
To make sure you do it right.
I'm Nancy McBrayer for the Spice and Tea Exchange.
Step back in time. Visit historic Grapevine, Texas.
Welcome back to Dr. Mara. Healthcare begins with you. Pete Prasad, 1160 AM KBDT. Calling number 214-810-8255. 214-810-8255. On the phone is Dr. Jedege, neuropsychologist, PhD, renowned psychologist. Dr. J, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, man. Well, thank you again for being on my show. Awesome Sunday morning. How was your weekend? How was your weekend so far?
It's going very good, and I just want to thank you for bringing this topic to the forefront, because with all that's going on in the world right now, and we're hearing news of all these people committing suicide, I really appreciate you letting people know about this topic so they can do something about it when their loved ones see signs of it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You know, I've been doing my program now for since January 7th of this year. This is my second program in the last 4 years, now helping the community, actually helping people around the world. So far, I've got people reaching out to me on Facebook Live. My show is on Facebook Live, and that's Pete Prasad. Also, it's on my website, peteprasad.com, and also it's streamed live and TuneIn radio app, 1160 AM KBDT. And, you know, it's amazing. For 6 months, as I developed my my followers, I have people from 42 countries listening to my show via Facebook Live. And they're always saying, hey, wow, what an awesome program, because we have different topics every week. But I've been carrying this topic now for the last 3 weeks about suicide, what's happening, as you mentioned, around the world. You know, things are happening. And my thing is, we only hear about it on the news when celebrities commit suicide. But as you mentioned, 45,000 people in 2016 committed suicide. And we don't hear about the people who are living in the farmlands of America or the jungles in the world. You know, we don't hear about those people. There's a lot of people, you know. So even with the media, and that's why I want to bring it to the forefront, as you mentioned. Bring it to the forefront. This is a disease. It's a neurological disease that we need to tap into. You know, research. Spend some money in researching, you know, as you said, neuroscience, the brain. And let the science, let the government put some money into this. You know, they're putting money into so many different things that I personally think that's unnecessary. But let's save a life, man. You know, and I don't want to even touch on what's going on the border right now with the separation with the kids and their family members. And how about their thoughts of depression, anxiety, separation? You know, think of those people down there. Think about them living the next couple of years about PTSD. You know, there's a lot of things that goes on in the psychosocial needs of family members. You know, but anyway, that's a total different day for topic for that. But anyway, I just want to touch a little bit about the brain. What are your thoughts about that in terms of the relationship of someone thinking about contemplating suicide? You know, what goes on in their mind?
So, as I mentioned earlier, that one of the major causes of someone wanting to commit this act, suicide, is depression. And as we know, there are a lot of structural changes that occur in your brain that can contribute to cognitive deficiency in people who have depression and suicidal thoughts. So, for example, with depression, which is a mental disorder that a person can have when they're feeling a loss of interest or sadness, hopelessness, there are certain chemicals that we notice that are problematic and can cause, for example, serotonin. Depression itself can cause problems with attention, concentration, a lot of times memory and information processing. When we think of our cognitive process, which is a mental process by which we internally and externally, deal with information, there are chemicals working in our brain, and parts of the areas that we notice that is prone to change is the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of the brain, which is where we think about decision making, processing information, planning things. Other areas of our brain, like the amygdala, which deals with, it's a part of our brain that is involved with emotional components of experiences. All that stuff can be affected, and it is so very important. Also, hippocampus, where we, have the memory. If something happens to you, you remember it, and it's a very traumatizing event. Or, for example, bullying is another thing our children deal with nowadays in school that can trigger depression. And so there's a lot that goes in to thinking about this condition, and it is very important that we take care of ourselves, not only emotionally but also cognitively and physically as well.
That's amazing because when you mentioned bullying, you're talking about kids who are like in middle school, doing different things in terms of their peers in that setting. It's something that you have to be very careful with in terms of bullying. It's something that's happening with kiddos.
Yes. Do you know Pete, that about 1 in 7 students in grades kindergarten to 12 are either bullied or have been a victim of bullying? So this is a big problem, and can cause depression in our younger ones, and therefore,
absolutely, yeah. Well, okay, we come out on a station break again. It's a little short segment. In about 4 minutes again. Just hang on, okay, my dear? Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you.
Dr. Mara, Healthcare Begins With You. We will be right back. Just in time? All right. You okay?
Yeah, this is so tiring.
You're all... I booked my flight. Okay. Hey, we're Facebook Live.
Hi, how are you?
We had problems with the elevator today. I had to walk up 10 stairs, 10 stairs, man. It took me 20 minutes to get up the stairs.
Me too.
How long it took you? Okay, go on this side. All right. I have Dr. Jedege. She's a neuropsychologist on the phone. Talking about suicide prevention. Hey, Phil, do you have a headset for her? Do we need one, or?
I don't need one.
That's fine. Yeah. You do? That's fine. You can still talk.
Okay.
So you probably move the hero, though.
Oh.
Yeah. Maybe. Let me see. Let's see. Bring that down. Let's put this back a little bit. 4 minutes. Yeah, put this back over here. Awesome.
I'm going to take the crown off because it's not going to fit. There.
Which one?
It doesn't.
Does it matter?
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Perfect. I can hear you.
Awesome,
yes.
great. Yeah, so this way you hear Dr. Jedege, and you're going to chat a whole lot. I'm just going to control it a little bit. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yes.
You can put it on.
No, it's too big.
Let me see.
Maybe I could put it on top.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
That's so funny.
You clip it on? There we go.
No, it's fine.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
I'm put a scotch tape on it.
Scotch tape.
Are you nervous of this trip? I booked my flight last night, but the hotel, I got to come back Saturday.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, I'm playing, you're gonna win. Go on Saturday. But anyway, guys, I'm sorry. Let me see. This is right here. This is mine. Okay. Here we are again. Sorry, Facebook Live. Miss Organ just walked in the door. Talk. Miss Organ, welcome. Tell me what you're doing. What's your platform before we go live on the air?
So I was recently crowned Miss Oregon, and that's super exciting because now I have 2 wonderful states that I get to promote my platform on, which is Texas and in Oregon. Both of these states have really high suicide rates, so we really need it. And so throughout my advocacy, I've been working with the AFSP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We actually just finished our annual overnight walk where we had people all over the country come, and they walked 15 miles, all to raise awareness for suicide. So how awesome is that? I've been visiting some schools, promoting my Project Purpose, which is like a school project I made for students to let them know that they have a place to go, that there is no stigma to feeling this way. And so just doing little things like that, trying to really open people up, letting them know that they don't have to feel ashamed for feeling lonely or scared or depressed in any way.
Awesome. Very good. And what's going to happen week of July 1st?
So I'm leaving for nationals in less than 2 weeks. July 2nd through July 7th is when we're going to have our finals, where the new Miss United States will be crowned. So I've been working super, super hard.
As is,
that.
no fees, no repairs, no waiting. TheseGuysBuy.com, TheseGuysBuy.com, TheseGuysBuy.com.
But yeah.
Welcome back to Dr. Murr. Healthcare begins with you. On the phone is Dr. Jedege, my friend, neuropsychologist. I've been working with patients with stroke, any type of trauma to the brain, different hospitals in the Metroplex. She also has an office in the area. Welcome back, Dr. J. How are you, my friend?
Good. Thank you, P.
Well, in the studios with me, Studio 1, 1160 AM KBDT, the number one radio station in the DFW area, and the number one radio show, Dr. Murr, Healthcare Begins With You, is Miss Oregon, Miss Nasat Perveen. She is competing for the Miss United States in Orlando, Florida, the 2nd of July through July 7th, where the final is July 7th. And her platform is suicide prevention. Say hello to Dr. Jedege, Ms.
Hey,
Nasat.
Dr. J, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Why don't you guys chat a little bit about suicide, since you guys are... Actually, she is studying neuroscience, my dear, Dr. J.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you some questions. So basically, when I study neuroscience, I've learned that when a person is suicidal, there's areas of the brain, such as like the prefrontal cortex and even the amygdala to some extent, that doesn't operate correctly. Is that true?
That is true. The prefrontal cortex is the front part of our brain that controls things like organization, decision making. And if you think about suicide, sometimes it's an impulsive decision on some people's part, which means they are not at the moment making, the right decision. But yes, the part of our brain that is affected includes the prefrontal cortex, the neurocircuit that controls our feelings and emotions, which is the amygdala. Also, as I mentioned earlier, too, the hippocampus is another area that is affected, and the hippocampus controls things. It's important for learning, memory acquisition, motivation, and aspects of emotions as well. So some of these areas, when there's a challenge or problem there, or whether there's chemicals that are not quite functioning well in many areas of our brain, including the serotonin or dopamine, all those things can affect our mood. So it's very important that we pay attention to how we are feeling so that we can affect it. And also, just to remind people that when someone is depressed, you have problem with attention, you have problem kind of recalling things, and that's memory, or concentrating also, and processing information and making decisions. So the brain is an amazing thing. Not only is our mood, something we should pay attention to, we should pay attention to our cognitive process as well.
Yes, and then I've also learned that both emotional pain and physical pain travel in the same pathway, and it goes to the same target area. So is it possible that when a person feels depressed or suicidal, they also physically feel sick as well?
It is possible, and if you think about it, pain, when you're hurting, you just don't want to do anything. You just want to, it can be very stressful for someone. So yes, it is possible, to have, they can be affected together.
Thank you. So we both agree that both depression and any other cardiovascular disease are in fact organ diseases, correct?
Depression, and there's a number of medical problems that can contribute to depression. And yes, you are right that cardiovascular issues, especially the risk factors that we have to watch for. And this is why I think it's important people go to their doctor. Not only pain can contribute to depression, but also you want to make sure that you manage risk factors for cardiovascular diseases, including your cholesterol, diabetes. You want to make sure that, we try to educate people on not smoking and drinking. A number of health issues are very important to think about in managing, so that we don't get into a situation where it affects our emotions.
Exactly.
And also cognition.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the reason I wanted to make that connection is that often when a person has a cardiovascular disease, we recommend them to go get treatment and help. But then when a person is depressed or suicidal, we don't see it the same way.
That is true. And if you think about pain and cardiovascular issue, you're right. We tell people, okay, do A, B, and C to manage your cardiac health. It's the same with pain and our emotions. They are, we have to see them as something that is real. I know sometimes people kind of dismiss depression, or they don't count it as something that is real. But yes, you're right. There is a connection, and we have to treat these conditions as something that we really have to attack, as if it's a health issue, something like a cardiovascular problem. You're right.
Thank you.
That's amazing there, Dr. J. Yes, every disease process will lead some patients to some type of depression where they're worried about their health. Now, I just want to kind of segue into a different topic, PTSD. Now, PTSD, from what I've read in the past, is something that is post-traumatic stress disorder. So post means after the fact. So how far does someone, let's say, based on your clinical judgment and also some patients maybe you have seen with PTSD, again, it goes back to dealing with the brain, do they have to go back in the past in terms of outburst behavioral activities, reflecting on things maybe from childhood or a certain age, a certain number of years back? We hear about certainly from the Vietnam era, a lot of PTSD from soldiers due to the trauma in the battlefield, trauma with bombs blowing up, in their faces, and their comrades are dying, fellow soldiers are dying. What are your thoughts on that?
So just to remind people that PTSD is a mental cognition that is triggered by a terrifying event, and whether you experience it or witness it, and it can start within a month of the traumatic event. If it starts right away, we call it an acute stress reaction, which is something that we really try to pay attention to in order to prevent it from sliding into PTSD. But for PTSD, it can start within 1 month of that traumatic event, it being experienced or witnessed, but sometimes it can appear years after the event. And so, and some of the reasons why our psychologists and counselors pay attention to this is because it's not something that it happens now, you forget about it, it goes away. It can come back years down